All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a huge one today. Jared Diamond's Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. You know, this book tries to answer maybe the biggest, most loaded question in human history. Why did the world end up so unequal? Why are some parts of it so much wealthier and more powerful than others?
So you might think a book this massive started in some stuffy university library, right? Nope. The whole thing, all 400 pages, was kicked off by a single conversation on a beach in New Guinea. A local politician came up to Diamond and asked him a question so simple yet so profound that it took Diamond a quarter of a century to even begin to answer it.
And this was the question. Yali, that's the politician's name, asked him, why is it that you white people developed so much cargo and brought it to New Guinea, but we black people had little cargo of our own? This became known as Yali's question. And when he says cargo, he means all the stuff, the technology, the wealth, the power. Why did it get spread out so unevenly across the planet? That's the mystery we're diving into.
Okay, Section 1, Debunking Flawed Answers. Now, before we even get to Diamond's actual theory, we've got to talk about some of the wrong answers. The ones that have been floating around for centuries, and honestly, have done a lot of damage.
And yeah, we have to start with the ugliest one first, the idea of racial superiority. This theory claims, flat out, that the reason for the global imbalance is that some groups of people are just born smarter or more creative than others. It's a disgusting idea, and for centuries it was the go-to justification for conquest and colonialism.
Diamond just completely dismantles this. He says there is zero, and I mean zero, scientific evidence for any innate intelligence differences between large groups of people. But then he does something brilliant. He flips the whole argument around. He argues that, if anything, natural selection might have favored higher intelligence in places like New Guinea. Think about it. In a small-scale society, you have to be clever every single day to find food and not get killed. In big, dense European societies, a huge killer was disease. Your survival often had less to do with how smart you were and more to do with your immune system.
Okay, so if race is off the table, what's next? Well, how about the climate? You've probably heard this one before. The idea is that cold, tough northern climates force people to be more inventive, right? You had to build better shelters, make warmer clothes just to survive. Plus, all those long winters gave you downtime to sit inside and tinker with new ideas.
Sounds plausible, right? The only problem is history just doesn't agree. For most of human history, the hotspots of innovation were in warmer, even tropical climates. The Fertile Crescent, where agriculture began? Not exactly Chile. The Maya, with their incredible writing systems and astronomy, deep in the tropics. In fact, Northern Europeans were kind of late to the party, importing most of their foundational tech, like farming and writing, from warmer regions to the south.
Section 2. Proximate versus ultimate causes. All right, now that we've cleared away the bad ideas, we can get to the core of Diamond's argument. It's all about understanding that history has different layers, kind of like an onion.
And this is a really crucial idea. On the surface, you have what Diamond calls proximate causes. These are the immediate things: the guns, the germs, the steel. They explain how one group of people conquered another. But that's not the whole story. We have to ask a much deeper question. Why did one group get the guns, germs, and steel in the first place? The answers to that question, those are the ultimate causes. They're the real root of the issue.
So check out this chain of events. Diamond's entire argument is basically a domino effect. Step 1, the ultimate cause, getting a head start in farming and food production. That simple advantage leads to step 2. You can support bigger, denser populations, and not everyone has to spend their day looking for food. That means you get specialists. Think soldiers, priests, inventors. Which brings us to step 3. These specialists are the ones who create complex technology and political structures. And finally, step 4. Those dense populations, living side by side with farm animals, become the perfect breeding ground for nasty germs. And there you have it, guns, germs, and steel, the proximate causes of conquest.
Section 3, the geographic head start. Okay, so this leads us to the biggest question of all. If everything kicks off with a head start in farming, then why did some people get that head start? The answer has nothing to do with the people and everything to do with the place they lived.
So I want you to picture the world about 13,000 years ago, right as the last ice age is ending. What did humanity look like? Well, pretty much the same everywhere. Whether you were in Africa, Eurasia, the Americas, or Australia, you were a hunter-gatherer. Everyone was on a level playing field.
There was no hint of the massive power imbalances that would define our future.
So, what happened? If everyone started from the same point, with the same basic human toolkit, then the reason for the different paths they took can't be the people themselves. It just doesn't make sense. The difference had to be the land. It had to be their environment. It had to be geography.
And here's the key thing to understand about the invention of farming. It wasn't some brilliant genius having a light bulb moment. It was a long, slow process that completely depended on what raw materials you had to work with. You could be the smartest person in the world, but you can't domesticate a zebra or grow a nutritious crop from an oak tree. You need the right starting ingredients. This chart really says it all. Diamond's argument at its core is that Eurasia just got incredibly lucky. It basically won the geographic lottery. I mean, look at this. Of the 14 big, ancient domesticated mammals in the world, we're talking cows, sheep, pigs, horses, 13 of them were native to Eurasia. The Americas, they had one, the llama. Sub-Saharan Africa and Australia, 0. And it's the same story with plants. The Fertile Crescent in Eurasia just happened to have this incredible concentration of easily tamed high-protein plants like wheat and barley.
And believe it or not, it gets even crazier. Just look at the shape of the continents themselves. Eurasia is long. It stretches from east to west. Why does that matter? Well, it means that crops, animals, and even ideas could spread for thousands of miles along the same latitude, in the same basic climate. But now look at the Americas and Africa. They're oriented north-south. If you're a crop trying to spread, you hit a tropical zone, then a desert, then a temperate zone. These are huge climate barriers that made it incredibly difficult for things to diffuse.
Section 4. History as a science. So, when you put all these pieces together, what do you get? Well, you get a whole new way of thinking about human history. One that looks a lot more like a science, shaped by big, predictable forces.
And this quote from Diamond himself really sums it all up. History followed different courses for different peoples because of differences among people's environments, not because of biological differences among peoples themselves. In other words, the massive inequalities we see in the world weren't preordained by biology. They were the long-term result of a series of geographic accidents. Some people just got dealt a much, much better hand by the land itself.
And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question to chew on. This whole theory is about our deep past, but it has huge implications for right now. If geography and environment were the deciding factors for thousands of years of human history, what does that mean for our present and our future? In a world that's now dealing with things like climate change and global resource competition, how is geography still shaping our destiny?